The Umbar expansion is almost here for LOTRO, and for any last-minute crammers such as Louis, I have a list of the most important things to do before release to get ready for the expansion. But don't worry, this video should still be useful after the expansion launch to help you get prepared for Umbar and beyond. I also do want to mention I will be continuing my Umbar preparation process in a stream later today, so please check that out if you're interested in me practicing what I preach in this video. By far, the most important thing is to complete the first chapter of the Songs of Wave and Wind's book quest. This new book was started in Update 36, which also included the King's Gondor East zone, and the first chapter is available for completion leading up to the Umbar expansion. This is important to complete because you will have to have the first book completed to start the second book, which begins the Corsairs of Umbar expansion content. Unfortunately, Standing Stone Games did not learn their lesson from the Gundabad fiasco that caused them to let you start the Gundabad book without any prerequisites, and for Umbar, you will have the prerequisite of the first book to begin the Umbar expansion story content. You can begin chapter 1.1 at Midsummer Minas Tirith. It's super easy to get to from South Bree, and Glyndor here, he will get you started on the path of the first book. I will avoid spoilers, but this eventually takes you to King's Gondor East, and depending on how fast you go, you could maybe get it done in an hour to maybe 3 or so hours. But after finishing this first book, you will be all set to pick up book 2, presumably from Lineal here in Imloth Malui, where book 1 was finished. And look, if there is one thing you really need to do before the expansion, the first book of the Songs of Wave and Wind is it. Honestly, the rest of this stuff is much more, say, optional and just some things you can do to help your Umbar experience sometimes greatly. So for number 2 here, it is crafting. Crafting is getting a sizable overhaul in Umbar, specifically for crafting in the new Umbar tier, as well as the removal of vocations and change to let you pick the individual professions you want. Now, the LOTRO devs had planned to let you progress through the Umbar crafting tier without actually needing to have completed any of the previous tiers. But that change was unfortunately not possible. This means if you want to do Umbar tier crafting, you will have to have completed everything from Gundabad and before. This also means to do mastery crafting in Umbar, you will need to have mastered every tier before. Now, some good news here is that for gathering professions, you should be able to gather any tier of resources no matter what your gathering profession skill level is, so you only need to worry about this for crafting or the non-gathering professions, really. But yes, it is very important to work on your crafting if you want to be able to craft right away in Umbar. And with the crafting overhaul, there is actually a decent chance that if you are typically interested in crafting, that is, that you will indeed want to craft in this expansion because, believe it or not, the LOTRO devs are actually making crafting useful again. That still feels like a miracle after so many years and expansions of mostly neglect with crafting. Now for guild crafting, they have also mentioned that the Umbar tier of guild crafting will be separate from the previous tiers, but there will be tie-ins to the main crafting guild. Beyond that, there's really not much known at this point, but if you have time, I think it would be useful to at least assess your progress with the main crafting guild at least. Now with the split of vocations, I would also recommend planning out which characters you want to take which professions, especially if you have alts. Personally, I will be planning for like my main questers and adventurers to be gatherers, as in like they're foresters, prospectors, and scholars in Umbar. So that way they can just gather all the resources. And then with these resources, I can just ship them off to dedicated crafting alts. The LOTRO devs did mention that you will be able to do all Umbar crafting on alts who have not played Umbar content. So you can have dedicated crafting alts like this. For example, I plan to have a combination metalsmith, weaponsmith, and jeweler. This character is level 100 something as reference. And then I also plan to have another actually level 100 or so character who's going to be a combination tailor, woodworker, and probably scholar. Even after Umbar launches and you get deeper into crafting, I think it is going to be very important for you to plan out how you want to craft on which characters, so basically you don't end up wasting resources and progression if you decide on something else later and you like end up wanting to switch. In the words of Treebeard, don't be hasty. But what you should be hasty with is inventory management. The third toughest boss in LOTRO here, of course, after Piper and Lag. And yes, I know it takes hours and hours just to free up a couple of spaces in your inventory, but trust me, it will be worth it. Otherwise, you might end up like Louis. Louis constantly struggles with overflowing bags in a jam-packed vault, all because he just doesn't feel like cleaning his room, or inventory. In reality, with consistent upkeep of just a few minutes every play session or two, you can actually keep your inventory quite tidy in this game, if you can believe that, especially if you take advantage of bank alts. That's what epic adventurers do, but for all the Louis of the world who are in crisis mode leading up to the expansion, I recommend just shipping off all your old items to dedicated bank alts, or even vendoring certain items, or even actually listing them on the auction house can be good for some gold. I mean, some of us last minute crafting crammers may be easy targets for price gouging as well. But okay, for some specific item recommendations, if you are all caught up on crafting, you should be able to ship away all old crafting materials, especially if you do not craft on whatever character you are taking through the expansion. Now, shifting gears with items and thinking about legendary item system items, if you have level specific or Gundabad tier ally items such as enhancement runes we'll start with, those will be effectively useless in Umbar, so you might as well try to get the most out of them before the expansion launch. Otherwise, you'd be basically selling them to a vendor or saving them for an alt. For traceries now, I would recommend either using the best you have right now or just saving them again for a lower level alt as possible, or disenchanting later on, as you will replace all your Gundabad level traceries with shiny new Umbar ones eventually. So that does mean these new level 141 Umbar traceries will be able to be raised to higher item levels with the level 141 Umbar tier enhancement runes. So with old traceries, if you are at the ancient script cap already, like Louis, you can send them off to a bank alt to hold until you need ancient script. Now for non-level specific traceries and enhancement runes, so like the boxes you can get from the reward track and occasionally quests and different repeatables, hopefully you have already been saving these for the past few months so you can open them right when your character gets level 141 so you can become super overpowered early on. It's the only thing Louis has gotten right so far. But if you have not, I really do recommend not opening any non-level locked LI boxes until you are at least level 141, so you automatically get the 141 Umbar tier traceries and enhancement runes. These boxes do scale to your character's level when you open them. On top of all that, the reward track, of course, has non-level specific items, so you may be curious about that. I would also recommend, just like any other boxes, not open those until level 141 or higher. As far as progressing the reward track though, I would not bother putting a ton of effort into it prior to expansion launch, because you will get a lot of progress as you just play through the Umbar content and level up. Anything you do to level in LOTRO also levels the reward track, so this is more of a caution on wasting effort before Umbar. It'd be especially bad if you got burnt out just from trying to progress the reward track when it's not really necessary. But I do have a very important tip kind of hidden here, which is to disenchant anything that can be disenchanted for Embers of Enchantment before the update. It is tradition in LOTRO for below level cap items to disenchant for the leveling currency Motes of Enchantment. So Embers are used for the level cap, and for some strange reason, the LOTRO devs don't convert out our Embers to Motes when a new level cap is introduced, so you can actually hoard your Embers to start off an expansion. That means I recommend disenchanting all of your gear that can be disenchanted into Embers of Enchantment, which includes a lot of the Gundabad expansion era and level 140 gear. Assuming the devs don't forget, this gear will only be able to be disenchanted into Motes after the expansion update. But with all this thinking about inventory management, how about quest log management? You basically have two options. You can again be like Louis here, and while you are progressing through the brand new exciting quests, you keep running into a full quest log. Or you can be like our epic hero adventurer and clean out your quest log before the expansion so you don't have the unnecessary downtime that Louis faces. This really just includes canceling any quest that you don't have solid plans to go back and finish from older content, potentially canceling some of the repeatable quests from the Gundabad expansion era, and anything like that. But next up, well, we're still dealing with resource management. It really is a big thing in LOTRO, but this one's going to be on delving grits. Delvings are a level cap system in LOTRO, so unless the devs forget about them, which for some reason I have like this odd concern that they've just forgotten about delvings with the level 150 cap coming, but assuming that they have not, then you will be able to barter your delving grits for some nice level 150 rewards at the start of the expansion. I think this is something that is typically obvious, that you want to save resources that aren't automatically directly converted or destroyed, but with all the currencies and systems in LOTRO, I think it is something that is easy to forget. So this is mainly a reminder to not spend your delving writs before Umbar and save them for good level 150 rewards. And alright, those are all of the main normal things to do before the expansion launch, but we are not normal here, so I have some tips for faster progression here. First, as usual, I would recommend using Reputation Accelerator tomes for the expansion's 2 new reputation factions. This is pretty standard procedure in LOTRO, and these really help lessen the common rep grind with new content. Nowadays though, these are only available from the LOTRO store or very RNG Hobbit gifts, but some players, like Louis, stocked up on them a while back from the skirmish camp, so there's not much better time than a fresh new expansion to go ahead and use these, otherwise these will be sitting in your inventory and vault forever and you will have overflowing space. And now we get to the speed leveling section. So first off, if you just want to level faster, obviously you can use XP boosters, but what I'm talking about here is power leveling straight to 150 in record time. You can catch my stream later today for part of the preparation process, but if you are considering bringing more than one character through Umbar and you don't want to quest on one of them, then you may look into alternative leveling methods to get to the cap reasonably fast. You can of course farm dungeons like sword halls or Gundu are a couple good options, but you can also be like Alt Louis and fill your quest log with missions, in particular completed missions. Missions are important because they scale to your character's level, so as you level, the quests scale with you, and they never become gray, so you always get full XP from missions turn-ins. If you have a full quest log of missions on expansion launch, then turn them all in. That's a good chunk of XP. But here's where the real strategy comes in. If you combine it with blue bar bonus XP, like from Destiny points, for example, and a 200% XP boost, then you're basically going to be leveling at the speed of light. And this is something that I will be testing, but you could potentially hit level 150 just by turning in your missions. And if not, you just have a short bit of gameplay to get the rest of the way, really. I know most players, including myself, prefer to quest to level up and, play like the expansion's actual content, because it's honestly not like there's going to be much else other than questing to start. But for alts, it can be super convenient to have alternative leveling methods and some tricks to make these alternatives even faster, so maybe this could help you in those situations. Now, beyond expansion launch, I also recommend, if you are a VIP subscriber, to go ahead and get bonus XP from the Destiny wallet on your level 140 alts. If you want them to level faster throughout Umbar, you can actually log into them every few days and max this out. And over time, this is something you can basically double your XP gain for the longer term and help you get to the cap faster. And that completes my list of the most important things to do in preparation for the Umbar expansion, and just some general tips for when the Umbar expansion has already launched. If you have any tips to share, I'd definitely be interested in those in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video and learned something useful, don't forget to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching, everyone.